Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Mastering Dungeons, your favorite tabletop role-playing game podcast and stream and game design talk and news and all-around fun time with me, Shawn Merwin, and the co-host, Teos Abadia. Hey, Teos, what you got there?
Oh, it's just my favorite walking statue mini that is absolutely critical to the plot of Dragon Heist, which we're going to cover in our main segment. I mean, you would not be able to run it essentially without this Dragon Heist, without this, Waterdeep walking statue. We'll talk about that in our main segment.
That's a big mini, and that's probably actual size too.
That is, I think, for the heroes it is. Yeah.
Exactly.
It does have a bird nest in a corner, which makes me actually question the scale. I'm like, I love the detail, but I'm like, but we have giant birds.
It could be a giant eagle. Yeah, exactly, it could be like a gargantuan bird.
So how you doing?
I'm doing okay. I think we've both had weekends, but we're here now. It's Monday. We're ready to go. And you sent our patrons something cool this weekend, I hear.
Indeed. We got to use, you were part of this too, because you edited it. We took, last week, our Patreon supporters at the 2 tiers, Master of Realms, Master of Multiverse, they received 2 treasures, 2 magic items that grow up with you. They go up in level as you go up in level. And that's a lot of fun. And they're themed for Tomb of Annihilation. So we did that for 5th edition D&D last week. This week, they got them for Draw Steel. And that was a lot of fun to turn on my brain and remember the differences between the 2 worlds and how exactly do you bring that across, which is actually really fun work. And then you took a development pass and editing pass at it. And so we hope folks look forward to it and enjoy it, because we did get some messages saying like, Draw Steel, yes, please. And so you're welcome, and hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for supporting us with my weekend involving plumbing mishaps. It's a great time to join our Patreon.
Yes, just in time. And as we send these out to you folks who support us at the Master of Realms and Master of the Multiverse level, let us know what you think. Do you like them? Are we missing anything? Did we mess them up? Formatting wise, or rules wise, or anything? And what else do you want? What else do you want to see? Let us know. When we're in the creative mood and we're waiting on whoever's coming to fix the emergencies that we've been through, we could throw some words down on the page.
Yep.
And some of our patrons, they talk to us via social media, via our Discord, via YouTube, via our email, which is masteringdnd@gmail.com. Sometimes actually, in real life at conventions, or sometimes we just imagine it. But usually we are able to filter out those last ones. But we know these are true because they came to us first via Patreon Discord. This is Cade J asking, what is your proudest achievement as a game designer? If you were to have a representative adventure or game that you would show off to others as your best work, what would it be and why? And you can't say the next thing I'm working on. Right. So the first thing is, when you tell me what I can't say, that's exactly what I want to say.
Shoots into your brain.
Yeah. But it's funny because I wrote an answer, and then as I was reading it, something else popped into my head. But I'm going to go with my original answer. So first of all, it's hard to say for me, because often those proudest achievements are not about a finished product, because those finished products, one, they are generally a part of a group, right? Even if you are writing solo, you have editors, you have developers, you have art, you have layout, you have all these sorts of things coming into play that other people have a hand in. And it might come out 2 years later. So it's hard to even remember working on it, much less be proud of it. And it might not even look like the work you turned in. Where I feel the most pride, if pride even is the right word, comes at the moment when you are working and you have that amazing idea that comes out of nowhere, breaks the mold of, possibly what people are expecting, but it is exactly what's right. And so these are just flashes of inspiration, flashes of breakthroughs. And so I went back and I thought, where did I have those moments most where I was like, I'm writing and I'm like, oh yeah, that right there. And really goes back to Acquisitions Incorporated, because I was thinking on several levels at the same time, right? I was thinking about making solid game design elements, right? Even though the subclasses were pulled out of the final product, right? The subclasses, I wanted them to be solid. Those things, the spells, I wanted them to be solid, even though that they also had to be humorous, because that's what Acquisitions Incorporated fans, and they also needed to be really biting satire, because that's at the base level what Acquisitions Incorporated is, right? It's a satire of industry. And so it had to work on all three of those levels. So sometimes when I came across something and I'm like, yes, it works as a game design, it works as humor, and it works as satire, that is like, yes. So the spells that had you had to pay
the gold piece cost you pay to Jim Dark
like
Magic.
The franchise fee. I forgot exactly what I called it, right? Yeah. Where you have to keep a special component pouch of just copper, and as you cast it, the copper goes away as it goes into the coffers of Jim Dark Magic.
Right. And I love that at one point in an Ac Inc. live game, it came up where Mike actually asked, "Wait, I'm Jim Dark Magic, so do I even have to pay?" And the ruling ended up being, yes, you do, because it goes through this bureaucratic magical process. Right. It'll be a delay before it's not like it just lands right back in your pocket. And just the hilarity of that, and that you caused that, right? You made that whole loop. Every time he casts Jim Dark Magic's magic missile, it's just great, right? It's just so funny. I laugh. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Teos, what's your proudest moment there?
That's a great answer. I mean, yeah, I pride myself on situations that I've done that people will talk about, right? And because it wasn't just good, but it was something they hadn't experienced before, and that's those flashes you're talking about. So I've a very similar way of looking at it. If I had to turn something in for kind of a resume type thing, it might be the another Ac Inc. project, which is Cloud Giant's Bargain, because that project, while it was really under duress, really kind of because of the schedule of the company, came together in a way that I think really has a lot that adventures should have in them. And the types of play experiences that it creates, I think, are really good, while being things you probably have, like you've probably not done a high altitude Halo drop in a D&D adventure before, and a number of other situations in there that are interesting. And get you to think. And when I've seen and I've had the pleasure of watching people play it, it's a really good experience and something they haven't had before. The Ac Inc. book itself is also really, really good. For the same reasons you talked about, working on the franchise system was just amazing creativity. It continues to stick with me as something I'm very proud of. And not because everybody will love it, but it works for certain situations really well. And I think a lot of situations, it's not for everybody. Nothing is. But it really, gets to a lot of the heart of what I think you need in systems like that. The adventures we wrote are just so great. And we work so collaboratively. We've talked about this before, but the way that you, Scott, and I could sit down and really think about what the adventure should be, and then have that knowledge that we could just work on that piece, and nobody else is going to come in and say, you know what, guys, it's this other thing. Or, oh, we didn't tell you what this project was about. Like, you and I came up with the table of contents for that book, right? Like, we sat down and thought about what should be in this book, and then got approval from Penny Arcade. It wasn't somebody constantly changing things, and that freedom to know what the project is and have the room to breathe with it and work with it. And if we ever thought of something different as we're writing, we could just quickly message the other two and go, I think I'm going to do a ridiculous wedding scene in a Dwarven fortress where you swap bodies with the wedding party. Does that sound okay? And everybody, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And that was just a great amount. And I really think that if you play through the Ac Inc. book, your chapters, my chapters, Scott's parts, when you play through that adventure, you will learn things. Like, there's no way, I don't care who you are, you will play through that, and you will come through it differently because guaranteed you have not had those experiences before, not all of those, and so you'll be a different DM at the end of it, and that's something that brings me great joy.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for that question and letting us brag for a little bit about stuff we've worked on. Now we're going to go to Alan Tucker, who comes to us via YouTube. Strong antagonists are the key to engaging adventures, in my humble opinion. Strong antagonists create conflict and plot for the characters. How do you two feel about that? And what are your favorite antagonists you've run or created for groups or tables? So, Alan, you are an amazing person. You are a great creator, and I'm going to disagree with you here. While I do think that strong and well-defined antagonists are definitely important to an engaging adventure, I think they are just one small step towards something that is actually the key to good engaging adventures. I think the key is providing characters with interesting and engaging encounters that have consequences to both the game and the story for success and failure. A strong antagonist can be an important part of making that happen, but I don't think that has to be there. I think you could have a great adventure without even an antagonist at all, much less a strong antagonist. So when we talk about Dragon Heist in our main segment, I'm going to come back and look at this sort of strong antagonist or weak antagonist look and how it can be important, maybe not. Teos knows what I'm talking about. He's hearing this for the first time, and he knows what I'm talking about. So I think the main problem, if it is a problem, with saying that a strong antagonist is the key to an adventure, is that D&D and similar role-playing games do not often give characters a way to constantly interact with that antagonist, or even know or understand those deep and meaningful motivations. So I think that antagonist can be key to the dungeon master or the game master's understanding of what they're presenting. But I don't think that it's that particular pillar necessarily supports an entire adventure.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at Tomb of Annihilation that we recently covered, and you're uncovering things that are happening, but you really don't know anything about a Serac, even at the end. Like,
right.
It's not like you get a book on his Greyhawk things, and plus, what even are those? We don't know, right? It's all mystical, non-understood. Yeah, it's true. I mean, D&D is about the experiences you have in those moments, which is why the villains can be sort of in the background. You stop the world-ending cult. Do you super know what the person went through? But I think it can be really cool. Like, one of the things when you look at your campaigns as a DM and you say, what could I do to sort of jazz this up? To really get players to be motivated. This is a thing you can do to get to those high levels. It's one of the things that I think you can really bring in that you might not have thought of doing, because we see so many examples where it's not the case. I had the pleasure of working with Alan on a really cool project, GM's Guide to Ending the World. That was fun. I talked about sort of actually having upbeat moments in your apocalypses that sort of make it fun. And another thing that I worked on was with Jeff Stevens on his book on villains. I wrote a piece about secondary motives, because it's very easy for the villain to be one-dimensional, right? And when they are that way, we get this sort of thing, like they're just trying to end the world. So, what more, like they're terrible. Like, what is there to know? But when you add a secondary motive, like, because I need to get back at the kingdom for what they did to my wife. Now you've got something really interesting about what her motivations are, right? And that takes us to by necessity of the second kind of twist, we want to tell the players and their characters that in some way. And that will really elevate play as they hear this, sad tale. And, where do you end up when you feel that way? Or it can be something like, one of the things that I'm dealing with as I try to end the world is the fact that my lieutenant keeps trying to stab me in the back. And so those kinds of things are a great example of how I think you can get to what Alan is shooting for, but I do think it's sort of like advanced stuff rather than necessary baseline key stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. The second question was what are your favorite antagonists you've run or created? And I'm going to name two, and this doesn't necessarily say that these are great or not, but they sort of back up what I mean. The first one is someone probably a lot of people know about, and that's Lareth the Beautiful from the village of Hamlet's Moat House, right? Here was an antagonist who was the main boss of this first one of people's first adventures. And it's a very interesting NPC. It's a very interesting concept. This person is like the next great champion of the elemental evil. Yeah. Right? They've got all this stuff going on. They've got really hateable traits for good guys.
Uh-huh.
And all you do is you go into their lair and you beat them upside the head and you take their magical armor and mace. and that's
and
really
find their
all,
note, and you find their little note.
And find the little letter. And so that is a great, nicely built antagonist that you never get to interact with, except for the little mustache twirling, I am the champion of evil. Ha ha ha. Ow, stop. Is basically how that goes. An antagonist that not many people might know, but those of you who played Living Greyhawk probably do, is Brendigan. Brendigan was the sort of antagonist in a series of adventures.
But who hires
you, but is also just a despicable person, but not in the way that like you can legally go kill them. Right. They're just greedy and they're malicious and they're sneaky and they do these things. And the people came to hate the character.
Yeah.
But also like really look forward to the next one.
Yeah.
To see what sort of shenanigans Brendigan got up to next. Well, and I think there were maybe 3, 4, maybe even 5 adventures over the years of that series. And each time it's like, oh, why are you doing these things?
Why are we accepting this quest?
Right. Why are we accepting these quests? But we also know that, at the end of it, there will be an interesting twist or, there will be something. But
he would hire you and then you realize that this evil person you're supposed to go up against, actually they caused, it was Brendigan that caused all this and set this all in motion. So it's really his fault and you're cleaning up his mess. He caused all this evil. But then at the end of it, like you can't help but like want to do the thing he hired you to do because those people are bad too or whatever. But you get double crossed and any number of interesting things. Yeah, it's wild. And family curses, wealthy family. It's very interesting. A lot of platters of sweetmeats at the beginning, and then you get
So that's an antagonist where you actually get to interact with.
True.
You come to understand that this person is out for power and making all sorts of poor choices that have poor consequences, but not in a way that they are like actually shooting someone or really, right. They're just making horrible choices along the way. And maybe I'm remembering these adventures wrong, but
no, but it really is interesting if you think of the adventures that we've covered in our main segment recently, right? Like Horde, if Tiamat's at the end, right? Out of the Abyss, the Demon Lords are sort of this vague presence. You have some NPCs that are kind of like that, but they're they vary and they don't you don't know about them at the beginning. The only one that really kind of really sticks out is Curse of Strahd, right? And I think that's a classic one because at the very beginning, you'll probably hear about them, meet them, see their effects. Like that's one where you are very curious what's going on. Your Taroka deck readings might even lead to that, right? There is a lot there where that's always on your mind, and it's always a good question how much you pick up about who they are, but you pick up something, right? And you are curious as you're working through all the immediate threats you have. That might be the best one that we have here. Is that a reason? Oh no, maybe Alan's right. Is it why? Is that why it's the best adventure?
Yeah. Well, we'll talk today about, like I said, we'll talk today about Dragon Heist, and we'll talk about different antagonists and what they bring to those adventures.
Love it.
So thank you for those questions. Now let's get into our news and commentary section, starting with Chris Cox and the promise of D&D crossovers. We talked about the Games Radar interview last time, and we get the second part of that interview at Games Radar with Hasbro CEO Chris Cox. In the article, Chris discusses the D&D crossovers and says the following. I don't want to take away any headlines from the D&D team, but I think you can definitely expect more crossovers inside of D&D. I mean, we had such fantastic experiences with the crossovers with Magic, the Gathering. D&D is a fantastic play system that I think is very open-ended. You already have a fairly wide spectrum with things like Spelljammer to Curse of Strahd, so you already kind of have the DNA for it handled inside the system. So yeah, you should expect more of those. Well, Teos, what do you think?
I mean, immediately I want to speculate, or I want to imagine, I would somehow come to a conclusion on is this another case where he's just sort of chatting and imagining he knows what's going on in the D&D team, or is he really like holding back on something that's being planned? We heard, Jess Lanzio a long time ago. Well, not really in terms of years, but one leadership group away. Talk about the idea that they were going to do this, and even back then, and recently on our Discord, we were thinking like, okay, what are those crossovers, right? Like a lot of the obvious ones are already kind of done. Lord of the Rings, Marvel, Game of Thrones, like all the big things you kind of think of end up having their own RPGs, and even the dungeon crawler Carl type things, you can see that can even succeed at the smaller level. And we a number of people on the Discord proposed things that could work. Some of them, honestly, I hadn't even heard of. Others, I was like, oh yeah, I guess that could work, But it's interesting because it is a little tough to do it. To find that like dream crossover that would really bring in the audiences. And I'd say even for Magic the Gathering, some of them have been misses, and others have been like Lord of the Rings was enormous for them, right? We also saw recently two companies doing the same IP with Elric, and so a question is, does it matter? Like, could D&D just do a Lord of the Rings crossover in some sort of deal, which I guess legally would have to involve Free League, but I don't know, right? Like maybe they could just do like a one-off just to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We know from Magic that it works. We know from fandom in general that there is this clamoring for more good content, and good is going to be a relative term because lots of fandoms are toxic in their gatekeeping of that sort of interaction. So, it'll just be a one step at a time, see what comes next, see how it goes sort of thing.
Yeah. And we've seen like, say, you want to say like, well, what if they do Star Wars? Well, we already had Star Wars, at Wizards of the Coast, and some perfectly fun versions of it. But did it make the company a lot of money? Nope. The license costs are really expensive, and it just didn't bring the support you might have imagined it would have. So we'll see.
Yeah. So that Games Radar interview was at gamesradar.com. Happy birthday, Daggerheart. If you're listening to this show the day it drops, May 20th, it's Daggerheart's birthday. And Darrington Press and Critical Role are celebrating with streams, with merchandise, and more. Between May 18th and May 25th, a brand new adventure called The Wish Thief will be available at participating guild stores and online at startplaying.com. Amid the golden glow of a lavish royal birthday festival, unravel a high society mystery, race through crowded city streets, and confront a deadly foe in a fast-paced adventure of intrigue, magic, and escalating danger. You can get a $10 coupon available for Daggerheart games on Start Playing and we have the link to that code here in our show notes. Daggerheart will also be on Alchemy's virtual tabletop starting in May. And there will also have new announcements during a live stream happening at daggerheart.com on May 20th.
And Shawn, I don't know if this will be one of those announcements, but sleuths on our Discord noted something as they were signing up for Gen Con events. I hope everybody got what they wanted there. This is a free seminar from Together Studios, Jen Ellis and Keith Baker. And it says the following in the free event, which is a seminar. The night market explores magic and mystery in a city where ghosts turned the wheels of industry. Take on the role of a haunted hero and try to create light in a city forever shrouded in shadow. This is a new setting and frame for Daggerheart. In addition to exploring the night market itself, Keith Baker will discuss the experience of creating it and offer advice on creating your own Daggerheart frames and settings. If that sounds cool to you, let me tell you that I happen to live in the same city as Keith Baker, and I can now say that there's exactly what I just said. and additionally, I think Keith wouldn't mind if I said you should definitely be interested in this. It's cool.
Yeah, Keith does absolutely amazing work no matter what he tackles.
And I said
whether
Keith
it's Eberron or board games or
And I said Keith because he's very well known, but I know Jen's a big part of this, and Jen's amazing, fantastic creative. So
Yep. There you go. Check that out at gencon.com events. We have from Dark Horse Comics and D&D Beyond a free comic preview. This is a preview of Magefall, which shows Greyhawk's famous wizard Mordenkainen being told to get out of the Forgotten Realms by none other than Bahamut.
Yeah, Bahamut. You speak for me, baby.
This article also interviews Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, who co-wrote the issue. So you can pick that up at ddbeyond.com. All right. You have to tell me about Dullahan, Teos.
I'll try to forget about how funny it is to have Bahamut throwing. Anyway.
Throwing shade at Mordenkainen. Yeah.
Yes. It just, I can't get over it, but I will have to. Yes, Dullahan is the fifth Dungeon Masters actual play action pack. I've now forgotten exactly the name of it, but it's that thing that if you pre-ordered the adventure or the Ravenleft book, you get this encounter, and it is a pretty cool encounter. This is based on the fifth episode of the actual play. It is for level 6 PCs. There is a Dullahan, which is a CR10 undead headless horse rider. It has a cool multi-attack using Beheading Blade, where it can lop off your head if your hit points are 0 with that blow. And it can also use Fiery Skull as part of the multi-attack, hurling it to do damage. And it can do a Headless Whale, who doesn't love that, to frighten and deal psychic damage to up to 3 creatures. And in the actual play pack, there's the name, you are hired to hunt down this creature who has been killing travelers along the road, but there is a fun wrinkle regarding who you were hired with. One surprising bit I found was the encounter says he is astride his mount, and it doesn't tell us what that mount is. So I hope that gets added, but otherwise I thought this was pretty neat. Waxworks from last week is still my favorite, but this one's pretty cool too.
Awesome. Also pretty cool is that EN World, which is based in jolly old England, visited Mongoose Publishing headquarters, which is in jolly old Swindon, England. So EN World's Morris visited the RPG company, Mongoose Publishing. In the past, we've covered how Mongoose is trying to shift toward a fully employee-owned and operated company and what challenges are involved in that. But Russ at EN World has posted a post and a video. You can see the office and the employees. Russ then interviewed CEO of Mongoose Publishing, Matthew Sprange, on many topics, including how they take turns cooking meals, how they operate more of a family-style business. They say that things are less efficient now, with deadlines becoming more guidelines, but they are also much, much happier. What did you take away from this, Teos?
The whole thing's great. It's like just anytime you see somebody interview an office and they're all very genuinely saying how much they love it there. You know, like, well, I really like my company car. I like my, bonuses that I get. I like, the how I had a mortgage advisor help me buy homes, and because before we worked here, there was just no way we were going to be able to buy a home, and just it's great. And they discuss their various products that they work on. Travelers by far the more successful, takes up most of the time. In fact, in the interviews, they're basically all working on different Traveler bits. But we know, they cover Paranoia and Dune and Star Trek and much more at the company. They share a lot of lessons from the tough days, back when they're writing those Slayers guidebooks, how much work it took to create those first ones. And when they realized, oh, wow, this is actually a lot of work to write a big book. It's a great video. It's just, so few companies today operate this way, right? Like literally the plumber that I keep talking about came to my house. We later learned they've just been bought out by venture capital. I'm like, you're what? Like, and this is like the opposite of that, right? And they've been very good on their blog of sharing, how it's not like you just say we're going to be employee owned and everything's sunshine. Like there are big challenges to it, but here's the staff, telling you how different it is to be all in, right? To all work together on this goal. It's really fantastic, and I love that Russ from Ian World covered this. It's really, really nice work on that piece. Nice video, nice writing.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of headless whales, Scipio has a really super fantastic analysis of crowdfunding and how the whale level, or the whale tier, which is the highest tier that you can back at, is very important to the success of these Kickstarters, especially the highest performing Kickstarters. So Teos, you went through this with a fine-tooth comb. You looked at Scipio's findings, and what can we take away from this?
Yeah, I did. Now, I'll say that, Scipio first shared this on our Discord, and we had a lot of fun talking about it. And I copied a lot of things from his Discord notes into my giant file of industry things that I keep. And then he blogged on this on the excellent Patchwork Paladin blog, which was really cool, where it host Scipio's findings. He has tweaked some things a bit. So I have tried to correct those, but I may be off in a tiny bit. The blog has the latest bits because the blog just went live today. So I haven't had a chance to fully update everything. But, step back, as you, dear listener, dear reader, gentle reader, and ask yourself, right, what do you think? Are whale tiers more common? Are they responsible for the big crowdfunders we have recently seen? And you're probably thinking yes. And that's where, that was sort of the drive for Scipio's examination. And when he looked at it, he certainly finds that top tiers are an important part of the funding for crowdfunding campaigns. So entry-level tier is, as an average, the medium level is 3.73% of the overall funding, right? That's your entry tier. Then your entry hardcover tier is 14.63%, but your whale tier is 22.82%. So obviously very important to how that crowdfunder does. Are there time trends and price points? Is the average pledge level going up over time? Yes, about $13.06 per year. Is the entry tier price going up over time? Yes, almost by $3. Is the hard copy price going up? No, that was interesting. Is the modal price going up over time? Yes, by about $22.65 per year. Is the whale tier price going up over time? No. And that was kind of interesting to me because I would have guessed otherwise. And he said what the change is coming from is two things. It's more common for the most chosen tier to be a higher price point than the entry tiers. And the price point for these popular mid-priced tiers above those entry-level tiers are also going up. So it's sort of like your middle is really going up and people are choosing to pay those higher prices, which is really interesting. He lists the top 5 campaigns with the biggest share of funding from the whale tier. For example, Fabula Ultima, it was 57% of funding those whale tiers, and that was, $465 that they're paying, 2,100 people or so backing that. Magnus Archives was 52% of funding, then One Ring, then Adventure Time, then Old Gods of Appalachia. The top 5 most expensive whale tiers, there were 5 backers at the $3,500 level for 7th Sea 2nd edition. TMNT, that's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 3,240. Griffin's Saddlebag Book 2, 2,875. So you see these high levels. And even if it's one backer or 9 backers, or for example, Voidsea had 19 backers at the $2,000 level, right? That's an enormous amount of money that's coming in. Dungeon Crawler Carl kept not ending, so it isn't part of this data set, if you're wondering, which I thought was funny. He kept looking at it, and then it would get, someone would back it, and it would just extend itself. The top $5 overall raised from the whale tier might not surprise folks that the Cosmere RPG, $7 million at the 408 level, 17,000 backers, choosing that, right? Avatar Legends, 4 million basically came from the whale tier. Crooked Moon, 1.34 million. Then One Ring, and then Gloomhaven Grand Festival. Catch all of the parts and the latest versions of them at patchworkpaladin.com. But I thought that was a really interesting thing. And I suspect we'll continue to see this change, because a premise I have, could easily be wrong, is that a big deal is that some people figure these things that are happening in our industry and crowdfund that way. And then everybody figures it out, or more and more people figure it out. So you get more of this being done, which then causes the meta to again change. And so there's always a few people who are ahead of the rest, and they drag the others into that. And, so maybe at some point people go too far into whale and we'll see some change. I don't know. Or it'll go even further. Who knows? K-shaped economy and all that.
Mm-hmm. In our creator corner this week, we've got 2 things to talk about. First, Dwarven Forge Caverns Reforged. Teos, this is your neck of the woods here, so what you got?
Man. Speaking of ability to spend money, our friends at Dwarven Forge have a new crowdfunder coming out. They are taking the cavern pieces that they've done before. I love them. They're gorgeous. And they're bringing that back, those classic cavern terrain and set pieces, all in beautiful sculpts, sometimes redone, sometimes looking even neater, or pieces you haven't been able to get in a long time. So that Kickstarter, the original one for Caverns Deep, was in 2018. Will Doyle and I contributed an adventure to it, which you can get free off of the Dwarven Forge website. And a lot of these pieces come from that set. So it's on GameFound. That's where Dwarven Forge usually does their crowdfunding. Check that out. It's called Caverns Reforged.
There you go. And a quick shout out to Tales from the Tavern Q&A. Shadowmain.com had this excellent interview with the always awesome Keith Ammann discussing his latest book, Making Enemies, monster design inspiration for tabletop role-playing games. Not only does Keith discuss the book, he also talks about the book's origin story, which started when Keith was on this very show, and we mentioned how he should be designing monsters, since he is such an expert at crafting encounters around them and putting tactics down for how these monsters should be fighting. And so now we have Making Enemies.
Yeah, fantastic.
And that was our news and commentary section here on Mastering Dungeons. Stay tuned for our main topic, which is Best of Waterdeep Dragon Heist.